This conference will now be recorded.
It's 3:30. I'll call the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee of Monday, November 14th to order. Susie, could you take roll call, please?
Sure. Leroy Vogt.
Here.
Dale Schmidt.
Here.
Tracy Fluke.
Here.
Annette Obinger. Here. Linda Monson.
Here.
Kyle Jago.
Here.
Jessica Atkinson. Here.
Thank you. If we all stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Item 4 is action on the agenda. I welcome a motion to approve the agenda, or if anyone wants to make any changes to it.
Motion.
I'll second. Motion by Leroy, second by Jessica, to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Item 5, action on the minutes from the September 12th Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting.
Yeah, I've got some.
Okay, you're always doing that.
Well,
It's your old
I
editor.
just sat down today and had time. Page 4, on the bottom, under site plan review. It should say exterior facility is being redone, no issue instead of non-issue, it just sounds better. Non-issue, okay, with no, yeah, non-issue.
So there should be no heat.
Correct.
I looked at that
Sorry.
on that thing.
Come on, Sue.
And then, sorry, new building on the McCarthy, was it Holmgren, it's supposed to be Holmgren Way, I think, instead of new building on McCarthy Way at Holmgren Way. Otherwise it just says
Yep, you're right.
McCarthy Way, not was at Holmgren. It didn't make sense to me.
You're correct.
Okay, then on page,
There was spell check with some pencils.
it doesn't, page 6, The top of the page, on J, and I can never pronounce his name, noted that Mr. Running, not Runger.
Got that one too.
Wait, I didn't get that. Page 6.
Yep.
Top of the page, Joel noted Mr. Rungy, not Runger.
Eliminate the R.
Yeah, the very first
Very
sentence.
first one. Okay. Then, this is the one I was just talking about before the meeting. Under B, motion, I didn't understand it. The third line, they're talking about trail recommendations. And it just would make more sense. Grant Street to West Main, probably going east to Ridge Road. Otherwise, I thought it sounds like east to Ridge Road, and Ridge Road isn't, it's north or south, so I would just like that we're going east to Ridge Road.
So for clarification purposes, the plan would be to maintain the Sand Acres Trail from Grant Street to West Main, correct? And then we were going to maintain the trail on West Main to
Eastward.
east to south.
Or however you want to say, east
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Eastward is fine.
So it's that new piece that would be maintained.
Eastward, as I just didn't understand the east part. And then on page 7, it's the same thing, the third dot. Ridge Road east from Morris Avenue, and I was talking to Joel, it's Ridge Road east side from Morris Avenue to Valley View.
Yes.
So the word side should be added. Susie, got it, the word side.
And that's the sidewalk that
Yeah.
we're looking at.
East,
Okay.
east side, this side. And then, under C, public safety, the second line, where it says prior to school opening, approximately 120 vehicles. I think there should be an S there instead of vehicles did well. I think that's it. Okay.
Thank you, Annette.
That's good.
Any other corrections anybody else have? Okay, otherwise, a motion to approve with the corrections that Annette has.
Motion to approve it.
Motion by Dale.
Second.
Second, Leroy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Here. Item 6, comments from the public. The comments must be items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. A board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed, nor individuals named. And finally, the board is not able to take action at this meeting. Are there any comments from the public, anyone in here or on the computer that look like that has any comments to add? Okay. Thank you. We will go on to site plan review. Kyle, Joel, Rex, anybody have anything to add for site plan review that we?
The only one that seemed to come up was that there's a fourth building on the Element, and they're pretty good about bike facilities, so I didn't make a recommendation there. I had in the past, and Aaron pointed out that the stuff I wanted was already included in the plan.
And it is, yep, like indoor and outdoor bike storage. We'll talk a little bit about Element Way too later on in the agenda as far as improvements to Element Way as it relates to that project.
There's a site plan too, which you'll get at some point in the future. Potentially, I don't know what you can say regarding the new library.
Right, so Annette knows this being on the library board, but the village purchased the former San Luis nursing home property.
Oh, okay.
Within the last few months, with the idea that we would be seeking proposals from private developers to rebuild that site, basically raise the existing structure and rebuild it with a shared mixed-use development. So the focus is on senior living. So it could be either independent, assisted to full memory care, but also the addition of the Ashwaubenon branch of the Brown County Library would be co-located on that site. Okay. Proposals came in last week on Friday. I believe it was last week already now, or 2 weeks ago, in fact, 2 weeks ago. And so we got two proposals from two independent developers for that project. And at this point, we're still coordinating meetings with, I think, members of the library board. I think Annette's on the internal review committee and one other.
Yeah, he said he could go.
Okay, and so we're going to be meeting, reviewing those proposals, and then eventually
Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
bring forward not only information to our committees, but obviously this needs to get approved through the library board as well.
So I think what we'll want to do is just like take a look at what the current library has, for Kitty Corner from Valley View, and does that suffice? What do we, when it's time to develop that site or to ask the developer to put in bike accommodations for the library, whether we do that or the developer does that, what do we want there, based off of what's working well right now at the current library?
They will, I worked on the East Branch. They will definitely put bike facilities, bike racks in there.
What they have there is pretty good now. They put a new bike rack in a year and a half ago. And it's a nice bike rack, and it's real easy access to get in and out. Okay. You can check out a bike lock with your library card.
And being on the East Branch, working on the East Branch because they're getting the new library, there's going to be wheelchair combination. We'll make sure there's wheelchair. We'll make sure that it's drive-through. I mean, there's a lot of questions. I mean, being on it, I've been through it with the East Branch. I know exactly what we need.
Good. We appreciate your help on that. That will be a good combo. While we're on the site plan review, I wanted to introduce our new public works director, Brian Rickert, is right here. He's going to talk later and go maybe into more full introduction and talk about some projects and stuff. But I'm sorry, Brian, I'm going to introduce you right at the beginning. So we appreciate you being here. So.
Thanks.
Okay, nothing else site plan then, guys? Then we'll go to action items. 8A is discussion and possible action to recommend a corridor study along Holmgren Way. We did discuss this at our last meeting, which was in September. And Cole had come to do a presentation on the bike plan, but didn't touch on this. So we want to put this back on. We had asked it to be put back on. So Joel put together a proposal. And Cole, thank you for being here today too, to kind of talk about it and give us some ideas on what we could do, what could be part of it, and see where we go from there.
Yeah, so from our last meeting in September, if you recall, we had a pretty hearty conversation revolving around the scope of what this project or this effort should undertake. There was a lot of discussion related to how comprehensive should this study be? Should we be focusing on the concept of taking Holmgren Avenue from Cormier to Lombardy and putting it on a road diet, if you will? Or are we just simply looking at keeping the existing travel lanes as they are, but looking towards ways to improve pedestrian crossing points, and particularly in and near those points of interest, like Capital Credit Union Park, maybe up in the sports and entertainment district. How can we improve those intersection areas? And so from that conversation, Cole and I met a few days after the meeting and had a brief conversation about what does Cole need in order to have direction to be able to actually perform some type of study. And he had suggested the committee devising and then seeking board approval, kind of a purpose and scope of the project. And so in my own little echo chamber, I put together just a real brief outline as to what that purpose and scope would be, in hopes of gathering all points of view from our last meeting. Because again, there was kind of a divide, if you will, as far as what that scope should be, whether it's a real comprehensive study on the overall corridor or just simply focusing on specific crossing points and intersections. So I think we tried to accommodate that, and I invited Cole to participate in the discussion so that he can kind of hear firsthand what the committee's desired results will be, and then we can either tailor the scope a little bit further down or drill that down based on that recommendation. And then at that point, if the committee is recommending a study to be completed, this being an advisory group, that recommendation would then go to the village board for consideration and approval. And Cole will certainly correct me where I'm wrong here, but my understanding is that this would be a project that, if it were to be undertaken, would be done at some point next year, and it would be probably mid to later part of the year based on county planning's availability. So with that, I'll open the floor up to Cole if he has any questions or if there's any comments or feedback from the group about what the outcomes could be.
Yeah, I guess I'll start. Thanks. Can everyone hear me at this volume?
Yep. Doing
Okay,
well.
great. So, so as Joel mentioned, we did talk about this, and one of the things that I would request, and it looks like you put together something in draft form, and this is something that we typically want to know from any community or any entity we're doing a project for, is what are you looking to do? So basically, we would leave it up to you to figure out what you want us to take a look at, and just based on the information that I've looked at in the draft scope that Joel put together, it's certainly something we can do. And as Joel mentioned, I think what we typically like to do is, I know there's some background information. If depending on what the village wants to do going forward, if anything, that's the point at which we'd probably determine when we'd start. So if we wanted to do a lot of like field work, which of course we'd want to do, we would probably start that sometime in the spring or maybe late spring, early summer, when more and more pedestrians are actually out on the street and moving around, and bicyclists might be out there too. So, but before that, we could begin to collect information regarding crashes and other things like that too. So, we'll see how it can fit in, but again, it kind of depends on what the village is looking for from us.
So looking at the scope of work, obviously we've talked, I think, at this committee level more perceptively and anecdotally about safety, like safety situation on that stretch of corridor. So we know we've had a few traffic pedestrian crashes, near misses. So Cole would basically go through that data and compile it to get an identify a possible trend or maybe a specific pinpoint locations where these issues are predominant. Maybe we find that it's because people are drinking too much alcohol and they're walking out into the street. So is it a control issue with licensing or whatnot? And then I think it would be beneficial, because of where we are, is to identify peak travel demands on this stretch of corridor. Ashwaubenon being very unique with Packers and some of the sports and entertainment activities that are happening in and around the expo and the Rush Center. This isn't your typical corridor, so there's different challenges to identify peak demand. So just trying to identify when those peak conditions exist and what the outcomes of that are. What we'd want to do then is, based on maybe some possible recommendations, what would that mean for that average daily traffic count? And then also what would that look like during peak flow, right? We know what it looks like on a Monday afternoon at 3:30 p.m. what does it look like at Sunday evening or afternoon immediately following a Packer game? And what would that do? What would that mean? Because I think if we present this to the village board, those are the concerns that you're likely to hear from the board is, we know what it does now after a peak flow event. What would your recommendations or possible recommendations do for that peak flow event? And how would that impact that?
All right. And I think that's fine. And again, I would rely on the village to kind of determine and let us know what is in play essentially. So one of the things you put on your summary here is access issues. So I mean, there's quite a bit of access along, or driveway access along Holmgren Way, especially on the north end, just south of Lombardy and that area. So I mean, I'd be curious to see if that's the sort of thing going forward. If you wanted us to look at that corridor, if the village, based on its direction, might be open to maybe reducing some access. I mean, so there are any number of things we can look at, but we kind of we'll rely on you to determine, I guess, the different issues that you want us to look at and how far we should go.
One of the elements that was not included in the scope of work that is traditionally found in projects of this nature is public input and public engagement. We're kind of doing this work in somewhat of a vacuum. And would it be beneficial, and Cole, I'm looking kind of for your feedback on that too, as to whether it'd be too premature to engage the public. But as soon as you start talking about things like a road diet or access control, that will, even if you have no thought that that's going to be a consideration, just because you're talking about it or studying it, raises some eyebrows and some concerns, and it may create some consternation amongst that business community. And would it be beneficial for us to engage in that public as part of that discussion?
It could be. I mean, I think there are stakeholders along the corridor. And again, I think it really depends on the extent to which the village wants to proceed with this. So if you're looking for just minor improvements, maybe a significant amount of public outreach isn't necessary. But if you're looking for a significant modification of the corridor, especially at certain locations, like you're looking perhaps to reduce access at certain locations, well, then certainly we want to reach out and talk to those property owners and others to kind of get their feedback before we do that. Another entity, of course, which is a village entity, and that's the emergency response along the corridor, because as you know, obviously the fire department's right along the corridor. So we'd want to talk to the fire department and your public safety folks to get their feedback on anything we might be considering as well.
I think the other thing that's changed a lot on the corridor is the amount of residential we have there now. And it's just we're adding more and more of that. So I think that's a definite impact. We want them to be able to walk to different places safely and easily, rather than adding more motor vehicles to the area.
Yeah,
But I think
exactly.
Holmgren Way, I think Holmgren Way is a feeder street. And we did it to, at least I thought, to take traffic off of Oneida Street. And I just can't see a road diet, or I can't see 2 lanes going down that whole corridor. I just can't. I just don't think it's even worth studying that. I thought we came out of the last meeting that we were going to study traffic and intersections, but I didn't think we were going to study a whole road remake. That's my take on it. And I don't think, I'm thinking if you start, I was going to mention it, Joel did. Businesses down there are not going to like it if we decide to do like a road diet and 2 lanes to 4 lanes. It's difficult now getting out of the village. Sometimes if you have 2 lanes, it's going to be more difficult. I just can't see it.
Well, Annette, I agree. We have to be careful about, because that's a heavily trafficked road, and we have to be careful about that. But I don't think we can say, well, let's not even study it. Let's not, to say we don't, that's not possible. I think that's why we're doing the study, to see what's possible, what's feasible, and what's not. The study may come back and say, the business owner is a traffic, just won't support a road diet, don't even consider it. Or maybe it'll say, here's some modifications. But I don't think the true purpose of a study is to find out what's possible and what makes sense. Not to say, well, here's what we want to do, now let's have this study back us up. That's, I'm sure, not what Cole is going to come up with. He's going to say, here's what you can do, here's what you shouldn't do, here's what's not even possible. So I think we have to leave it as open as we can and make those decisions later, based on information and based on the facts, based on the study.
I think you're gonna open a can of worms though if you do the road diet. I really do.
Well,
I really do. Especially with the
and I
businesses
agree,
that are there.
I agree with you, but we don't know what a road diet is gonna look like right now.
Well, the professionals are the ones that can give us information to make a good informed decision. I can't say whether it's a good thing, a road diet or not. I don't know, because I'm not a professional. I don't understand that. Cole or an engineer or someone that specializes in that can give us information on that. So I agree with Kyle. I mean, we don't want to say right away, we don't want this, this, and this, because what are we basing that on? We're basing it on our personal feelings, not on professional information and insight that we could get. And I think we just need to leave it open and see what comes of it.
I think the advantage too is if we go through this experience, it'll give us some experience for the next time we maybe have to look at, because we've been through this process.
Yeah.
Cole, can you do a good study without a road diet? I mean, will it include a lot of things or?
Well, I guess, and again, I mean, it's entirely up to the village to let me know what the parameters are. So, you know, if that's something that the village ultimately just does not want to consider, you know, we can look at other alternatives to that. But I guess just in general terms, you know, if we're going in to study something, unless there's something that's simply just not acceptable, you know, because of operations or safety, you know, I guess we would typically say, you know, let's let the study guide the decision. But keep in mind, even if, you know, the study comes back, hypothetically speaking, and says that a road diet is feasible, it doesn't mean the village has to go with it. It can, you know, we can have different alternatives based on the desire of the village at that point. So if it comes back and says something like, well, a road diet from an operational and safety standpoint would work, you could still choose another alternative and maybe do something a little bit less. So then you'll say, well, you know, we've talked about it. We don't want to do a road diet. We'd rather focus specifically on pedestrian crossings at certain locations without reducing the number of lanes. We can do that too. It's entirely up to you.
So I think if I'm hearing Cole correctly, without, he's trying to be astute, but the question is, do you want to include a road diet as part of the language? Or does this committee specifically only want to look at pedestrian crossing points? Because that was the debate at last meeting. And maybe that's the answer that you need to give myself and Cole, and then that's the recommendation that kind of goes forward.
Yeah, and I guess just really quickly too, that's a good point. So, I mean, if the village determines that, let's say there are certain things again that are just not acceptable, it would be good for us to know that on the front end, because then that would help to tailor our approach for the study and maybe save the village and us a lot of time going through a process that ultimately, you know, if the village doesn't want to, I guess, go with the conclusion based on a certain process, again, it'd be good to know upfront.
Well, would you say that reducing the amount of lanes on a road makes it safer for pedestrians to cross it? Is that something that typically increases safety on a road?
It can, yes.
So then if we don't want to look at that, that's one form of safety that we're not looking at all for our pedestrians crossing, and that is a factor in that. So if we wouldn't go there, we're eliminating that as a potential to make it safer for people to walk across that corridor.
So I'm going to voice my opinion from the past, from work.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I brought this up before, but because of where I came from, I'm Six Sigma driven. You collect the data, you pull the emotions out of it, and not every situation can you do that. But I believe in this situation, I personally believe in this situation, we have somebody that's willing to do it for us. So we collect the data, and then we can understand the data, and we can maybe use it going forward for something else. And if at that point we can make our decisions, and we may decide that we want to try and do that, and the board may say, no, we're not,
right.
Don't even think about it, right? But at least we have some data to talk about, right, and understand why this data says this is important. This does really help pedestrian
Because we're thinking about the pedestrians, we're not thinking, right now, this is the goal, right? We're not thinking about the cars going down the road, right? Although that's important.
Well, it's all part of it, I think, because I would assume, Cole, that the study would include looking at motor vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians and safety for all users along the corridor.
Well, it would have to, because again, if we're not just going to design, I mean, we want to design the corridor for all modes. And so, we want to look at, so let's just say that, again, hypothetically, that, reducing the number of lanes could improve pedestrian accessibility and safety. Well, that could be the case, but at the same time, the trade-off could be unacceptable to the village. You may restrict vehicle movement so much that the village just won't accept that. So, I mean, what we're trying to find is something that works for as many modes, or preferably all modes. And so, again, if we do this, and again, depending on the parameters given to us by the village, we would make sure that it is the best solution for all modes as possible.
Cole, if I can just ask one thing, and I'll ask it of you and Joel and maybe Brian. In here, we use the term road diet. Exactly what is a road diet? Can somebody tell me what a road diet is?
Yeah. Just simply, that's just the reduction in the number of travel lanes in an existing road. So for a 4-lane road, a road diet might look like you would go from a 4 lanes, 2 lanes each direction, to a single lane each direction with a center turn lane. So you're basically just removing through lanes from a road.
Does it involve dollars? I mean, can you just do it, or do you have to redo it and plant plantings? And does that make sense?
Yeah, no, there are various ways to do it, but one of the ways to do it is to take an existing road and essentially just restripe it. So if you have a certain cross section, a certain amount of width between the existing curbs, after a study, if you find that all you really have to do to accomplish your road diet is just restripe the road, you might be able to, convert 4 through lanes to, 2 through lanes, a center left turn lane, and have enough room on the outside for striped bicycle lanes. And you could do that within the existing curbs. So you don't lose any space. So it's not like, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but in many cases, when communities do this, they actually can work within their existing pavement, and they can kind of see how it goes. And if it doesn't work out that well over a period of time, they can, let the paint fade and then restripe it and perhaps convert it back to a 4-lane road.
So if we do the road diet, you would also still be studying options if the road were to stay the same.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to say realist, not pessimist here. The fact that the road was just redone and the village is already questioning it, like, in all honesty, I don't know that they will approve it, not our decision or our place. I think having more data, the better in the world we live in to do things, for sure.
Yeah.
But my concern is, like, if we are putting all of our eggs into that basket, I think realistically that may not happen. And so I don't want to put all the time and effort into that and then not have had options or things looked at that could have been done for a lesser expense or still to accomplish what we want to do, because we're looking at something that we know the village may not, and just being courteous of Cole's time, because I kind of got that at the beginning too, saying don't want to do this if we know ultimately the village isn't going to approve it. I do respect where they're coming from with that too. I think if you're willing to put the time into the data, knowing that there's a chance that may not happen, again, there's more data there that just gives us more to go off of, or like you said, for even future things. But I just want to make sure that we're looking at other alternatives, because I do think that that's important, that we don't just put all of our eggs into that basket in case that doesn't happen. And just from a feasibility standpoint of what can we accomplish maybe quicker to get this area, because it's going to be getting utilized. Like you said, this won't even get done realistically until next year. And then by the time then we roll it out, so that's a whole other year of events and things going on out here. Like, what could we be potentially doing ourselves or looking at internally in the meantime, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not discounting what you're saying. I look at the education that I can learn from Cole with this. If he's willing to do it, before either now or future. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
I'm not the expert, far from it, so.
I don't really know that anybody was proposing a road diet. We're saying it's a
No.
possibility,
No.
and like Jessica says, let's just get more information, more data, and the more we know, the easier it is to make decisions. You know, because it's always, to me, it's always better to have more information than wonder what this would do.
Absolutely.
So rather than drag it on, do we have to vote whether we want road diet in it? No.
No, I think we're just saying,
We
we
just
want
put-
them to
yeah.
look at, we would love
We'll put
Cole and
together
Rock
what we
County to
want.
look at it and
Decide what we
bring
want.
us some solutions, some potential solutions, which could potentially include a road diet, could do, you know, a lot of different things. Like Jessica said, there's maybe some things that Cole will come up with that are smaller things, like Brian's gonna talk about a little in his report, but they're gonna be redoing the pedestrian signage on the north end to make it that bright yellow. And that's just one thing. That's not a big cost item. But it's something that I'm sure Cole will have some of those in the report as well, some smaller things that'll make a difference. So I think it's just not limiting him and saying, okay, we don't want this, this, and this.
Yeah.
And we don't know what the lunch board's gonna like. We can all sit here and say, they'll never vote for this or they'll never vote for that, but we don't know that, what they would support. So I think, like Dale said, I think allowing all the data to be collected and getting a good comprehensive report will be a benefit to the village and for us to, you know, make some recommendations going forward. Because we don't know everything. We don't know exactly what is the best out there. I certainly don't.
As long as the businesses are contacted.
Well, and one of the
I think
businesses,
that'll be put in the motion along with the public safety department.
yeah, well, I think the businesses definitely would be, I'm sure Cole would talk to them. We've had, you know, I've had talks with one of the businesses, the new businesses up there, and they're very supportive of looking at the corridor and seeing what we can do. So there is interest, I think, already from the businesses up there to, you know, what we could do different to make it easier for people to move through the corridor and to their businesses. So. With that, any other comments, anybody? Otherwise, maybe a motion to recommend that, you know, we work with Brown County and, or send it to Village Board, I guess, for approval, to go ahead with contracting with Brown County for a study of the Holmgren corridor from Lombardy to Cormier.
They would do a study on car study, right?
Yep, that would be included, right? Cole, look at the motor vehicles out there. He was one
Yeah.
of the,
Right, yeah. We wouldn't just restrict our analysis to pedestrians or bicyclists. It'd be the whole, every mode.
the whole, yeah, everything that's out there.
It'd be every mode. Yep, exactly. So again, you know, what we don't want to, you know, help something at the detriment of something else. So again, we want to make sure that we enhance everything we can. So yeah, we'll look at all modes and make sure that everything can interact safely and efficiently.
If there is something that can be done quickly, could you let us know ahead of time before the study's finished? As far as traffic and that, I don't know, could you? Maybe.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm following.
Like if you're seeing signage or something, that could be an easy thing like that
An
you
easy
just said,
fix.
mentioning it. I think that's
Oh.
what you're asking.
Yeah, if there's an easy fix ahead of time, could you let us know so that we don't wait until the study's finished?
Well, I guess it depends. I guess it depends on what you want to fix. You know, I guess it depends on what you want to fix. And again, there could be some.
All right.
Yeah, otherwise you do something and then the study says, well, no, now we put money into something that maybe isn't a good thing to do, or wasn't.
If I may just offer a suggestion, so in the purpose and scope narrative that I had drafted for the committee to review, in the third paragraph, it talks about the requested study should analyze the feasibility of a road diet concept. I think the road diet concept is the concern from members of the committee and likely members of the board. So the feasibility of, instead of saying road diet concept, just simply saying altering travel lanes or making adjustments to the number of travel lanes or something to that effect.
Joel, I don't, you know, just a suggestion. You maybe what you want to do is, you know, sense it, you know, in a way that kind of implies a predetermined outcome.
Right.
What you might want to do is just keep it as, you know, just study the corridor between Cormier and Lombardy to determine if there are ways to enhance, operation and safety along the corridor for all modes of transportation or something like that.
Yeah, because road diet is almost the solution,
Right.
Right.
instead of leaving it just, there are other solutions like Jessica said and
Yeah, and I think, we're not going to go in, and again, we wouldn't go in assuming that a road diet is feasible or even preferable. What we'd want to do is collect the data and take a look at it and then talk to people and then figure out what the best alternative to recommend would be. And that could be a road diet, but it might not be.
Okay, Joe, you got that approved verbiage?
Good for you.
All right, any other questions or comments on it? Otherwise, I would welcome a motion to send this on to village board to work with their proposal to have Brown County do a study of the corridor.
I'll motion to whatever we end up with writing here.
Study the corridor to determine and enhance the safety between Lombardi and Cormier.
Yep, on Holmgren Way.
Yeah.
So do you want to make that motion in that?
No,
No?
I'll approve it. I'm not gonna make it.
Okay. Dale?
I'll make it.
Okay. Susie, did you get that all right?
Dale and Linda. And I'm gonna listen to the tape. But
Okay,
I just-
otherwise we can
There
repeat
you go.
it. So the motion is basically that we would like to have Brown County do a study of safety along the corridor on Holmgren Way from Cormier to Lombardi. Dale, is that okay with you?
To determine and enhance the safety.
So Dale made the
I'll motion for that.
motion and then Linda seconded that, okay. Any questions on that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Paul, thank you very
Yep.
much.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Sure, thank you. And any questions, let me know. And I guess from at this point, I would continue just to coordinate with Joel.
That'll work. I'll reach out to you after your village board.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good day.
You too. All right, thank you, everybody. Going to 8B, which is 2023 project update, looking at Morse Avenue and Element Light. And Joel and Brian, you guys can update us on those?
Share the screen here quick. It's in your packet, but I'll have it on the screen as well. So whatever you see on the screen is effectively in your packet as well. So the first item, just real quick updates on some projects. So in 2023, the village is planning on doing a full reconstruct of Morris Avenue from Holmgren Way to Oneida Street. This is being done as a result of the Hampton Inn Hotel project that is currently under construction right now. That project requires us to upgrade our water main service in order to support the development of that hotel. This had been planned for a number of years within our tax incremental finance district project plan. It was just a matter of time for development to occur that would then necessitate the need to do the reconstruction. So at present, Ayers and Associates is doing the design work for this project. We do anticipate going out to bid in early 2023 for the work to be completed sometime before Packer training camp. That's the goal. The hotel will be opening up sooner than the road work being done, but they do have access off of Van Avenue. So they're aware of that as well. This particular project does improve the overall mobility of that corridor. At present, I believe there is sidewalk on only the south side of Morris Avenue between that section of roadway. This particular project would put sidewalk, replace the sidewalk on the south side and install new sidewalk on the north side. It would feature two 14.5 travel lanes that would be shared travel lanes for bicyclists and motorists. It would not be a marked bicycle lane, it would just be a wide outside lane for bicyclists, and that's in concert with the pedestrian bicycle plan that identifies Morris Avenue as that type of corridor.
So standard sidewalk, Joel, or?
I'm sorry?
Standard sidewalk or expanded?
5 foot
Five
wide
foot.
sidewalk, yep, with a 6 foot wide grass terrace. So unlike Mike McCarthy Way that has the larger sidewalk, that basically goes up to the back of curb, this would have the grass terrace for snow storage and separation.
I have a quick question on travel lane, so it's 14.5 feet wide, and are we gonna be putting sharrows in there?
It would not be marked as a sharrow, so
Why
it'd just
not?
be a white outside.
Why not?
Because that's what the bicycle,
It says bicycle sharrow right in there,
on the,
it's like sharrow.
yep, on the proposed typical section for Morris Avenue, Ayers put sharrow, but under the bike and ped plan, it is not listed as a sharrow. It's just designated as a white outside lane. So that would continue on through the entire Morris Avenue corridor from start to finish. Okay. 9 foot wide parking lanes on both sides of the road. The typical section that you have here, it is shown in asphalt, but as of right now, we are planning on concrete. So it'll be a concrete roadway, integral curb. Okay. So that's Morris. Again, timeline will be sometime this spring. Completion, our goal is before Packer training camp. I just need to avoid that whole fiasco.
Can I ask a question on sharrows? To me, if we're putting a 14.5 foot lane out there, it's a very wide, it's a large lane, and it's a shared lane. That's how it's designed, to be shared for motorists and bicyclists. And I don't know if you guys are familiar at all, but on Broadway, there are sharrows when you get north of Potts, I think. Up into Green Bay, there's sharrows, and basically what it looks like, and Brian, maybe you can correct me on this, but it's a bike and then has like the sheriff's or the sergeant stripes on the top of it. So it's put on the road to let motorists and let bicyclists know this is where, you know, you should ride, or this is so people are watching out for you. I think that we should, because of the design, even though it says in our bicycle and pedestrian plan just white curb lanes, to have the sharrows out there would be an encouraging thing. It would make it more, the bicyclists more aware where to ride, the motorists to understand that bicyclists can be out there. And this paint that's put on the road, and it's kind of located where the bicyclists, they're encouraging the bicyclists to ride.
So does that have to be a certain width to tell you that it's a wide sharrow? Or a sharrow?
Basically, it's just an icon, bicyclist icon with a chevron.
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
looking at it. I just
Yep.
didn't know if you also had to designate a certain space in order for it to be
You typically, like the ones on Broadway, for instance, you'll notice they're positioned a little different, because on some part of that, there's parking. And then you would keep it out from the parking. And this one has a
Okay.
parking spot, so you would keep it outside of the
Yep.
parking area. And then some places there is no parking, so then they move them closer in to the curb. So again, it's a way to tell bicyclists that you're welcome here. It's notifying the motorists that bicyclists are going to be here. And it is kind of a commercial area, and there'll be, you know, a little more in and out there. So, I mean, I guess I would like to at least address that and see if that's something that we can do. It's paint to be put along the curb, you know, in the appropriate place.
Instead of just a white line?
Yeah, my only thought would be if we're going to do that, so on Morris Avenue, the entire corridor, basically from Argonne, even beyond Argonne, all the way over to Shady, so it goes underneath the I-41 viaduct, all the way to then Ashland. That's kind of that marked corridor where it says wide outside curb lane. So even if we added the sharrows just for that small section of roadway, you still have the entire corridor that's not marked. So that's the desire of the committee, and my recommendation would be let's amend the plan, and then the whole plan takes the corridor into effect. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense to mark a sharrow for basically a 1/10 of a mile when you don't have it marked the entire corridor.
What's the speed limit on that street there? Do we know, is it 30 or is it 25 or?
Morris, I believe, is
25. And in this picture, they show parking, and I'm not sure, but is there will there be a painted line designating what the parking area is?
What we've done, I believe, on Mike McCarthy is we did identify that marked lane, that shoulder lane, so you will have that marked center. That's how it's striped, white stripe. you will.
Yeah.
It'll be marked and it'll be off 9 feet from face of curb to the edge of the.
So in essence, we already have a marked line, a painted line on that street.
We do, obviously during peak events and things like that, there's gonna be cars parked there, so you don't have the space. for
No,
bicycles.
but I mean, so there's gonna be a separation between the parking lane and the traffic lane. That line is gonna separate that.
Correct.
That's already gonna do that. It's already gonna be there. You know, 14 and a half feet, that's a lot of space. And certainly, you know, the more paint you put on the road, the better, but then sometimes it's more confusing. You know, when we had, I think, Mr. Ernst here last week, he talked about, or last meeting, he talked about he would never bike down Oneida Street. Well, I bike down Oneida Street all the time. It's a wide street. I don't have a problem with that. So I guess, to me, this is plenty of room to bike.
Oh, it is, there's plenty of room, but it's a wide curb lane. I mean, you could potentially get 2 vehicles in it. And then the question I would have is, what is it gonna look like when it hits Oneida Street? And are we touching the intersection on Oneida? Because if you guys remember, there's the corner of Oneida, it would be the southeast corner, right? No, northeast corner, where the whole shoe repair gentleman is. And there's a planting bed with the push button right in the middle of the planting bed. And that's one of the intersections that we looked at. Is there gonna be some work in the intersection, and is that gonna be taken care of? And is there gonna be work on the Holmgren Way Morris intersection as well? Are there gonna be any upgrades or changes to those intersections?
The project itself does not go into either of the intersections, but of course you will be on the north side, you'll be tying in the sidewalk. So essentially the sidewalk's gonna have to go through that planter bed.
So then the planter bed will come out, and then are they gonna relocate? They're gonna have to relocate the push buttons and make changes there, because the push button, if there's a sidewalk there, is not going to be.
It'll be a component of the design, for sure. But the overall intersection itself will get reconstructed, just the pedestrian components, tie-ins to the pedestrian access points. We don't have the formal design yet. This is just this is the typical section. We don't even have the 30% design sets yet to really kind of give you an idea of what that looks like.
This would be like,
Any other questions on Morris?
this would be like going off from Wabi. I mean, not from Wabi, but from Hanson Road, when you get down to Broadway, going south.
Yeah,
That's what it would look like, right? With
It
an
will-
extra parking lane on the right-hand side and on the left-hand side.
with the Sherrills, yeah. So if you guys have gone through the intersection with Hanson Road, once you get closer to Oneida Street, the bike lane is discontinued. It's just like dotted, and then it goes away, and then you have the Sherrills there. So it's at least letting the bicyclists know, yeah, you can go through here. This is where you should be. And then when you get to the other side, to the east side of Oneida, then the bike lane picks up again.
Yep.
So yeah, so that the Sherrills through, if you put them through this section, would be similar to what you see at Hanson, just through that piece there. Be there.
If you are familiar with Mike McCarthy Way, when we reconstructed that a few years back, minus the addition of the additional paving between the terrace area and the sidewalk. This is the old picture when it was first completed. It's now, since that grass terrace area that you see has now been paved over with colored concrete, I believe. So it'll be very similar to that design. It's basically mirrors that.
So is that a bike lane that's designated
This
kind
is
of in the
that-
middle
This is
there?
that parking lane right here,
In that parking?
and this is just the through lane,
Oh, okay.
and then there's a parking lane on the other side too. So this is a 9-foot wide parking lane.
How wide is the traffic lane on this?
14 and a half.
14.
So if the project is, did you say 30% complete right now?
We haven't
Or so.
gotten 30%
Okay.
designs yet, so I don't know, yeah.
Okay.
If you got a recent update yet or no?
No, I would say they're probably gonna be very close to 30% because they're hoping to have 60% by this month, so.
So right now, this is what they're planning to do. And that's what the road will look like on this.
This is the design scope, the typical section that they intend to give the direction of. Again, that's based on the bike and head plan. And it wouldn't take much, obviously, if the village desires to change it to add a share road to it. It's just a quick add on the pavement marking page in the plan set. It's really what it comes down to. It wouldn't necessarily change the typical section.
Right, and the typical section wouldn't be changed. It would just be a matter of some more paint or paint being put in, the sharrows being located in there.
If anyone bicycles in the city of Green Bay at the, whatever that's South Point Road, ever at the end of Cormier that goes into Green Bay, they've done that. They just have about a 3-foot section with painted for the parking lane and paint for the bike lane. And when you go on, you go down and turn left onto, it must be West Point Road. They do the same thing there. They have a wide lane, and the parking lane is, you're biking that, your parking lane is to the right.
Yeah, but the bike lane is striped there. Correct.
Yeah.
There's a parking lane and then there's a bike
Yeah,
lane.
yeah,
next
so
to it.
they have,
This would not include a bike lane stripe at all.
no, this doesn't include a bike lane, but that includes a bike lane stripe, but that doesn't, they don't have share roads there either.
No, they wouldn't if they had a bike lane.
The share road doesn't provide any legal protections or anything like that to the bicyclist. It's just, as Tracy had mentioned, it's more about acknowledgement and encouragement that here's a bike, this is a shared lane for both motorists and bicyclists. Be advised that there could be bicyclists present, and encouraging bicyclists to say, hey, this is a shared lane, and so they acknowledge that bicyclists should be using this route.
But I guess my point is, even without the share roads, it's pretty easy to designate that stands out. And I think traffic is, if they see a line there, they're kind of saying, well, that tells me I shouldn't cross that. For some people.
Yeah, and it's just, obviously this is a small section of the roadway that would be getting reconstructed. So anything west of that from Oneida Street, that's just a standard 2-lane road like you typically see with what we have referenced as those visually narrow lanes. So.
One thing, a lot of the rest of the corridor is residential. Whether you go east of there or west of there, it's almost all residential. Maybe there's a little commercial when you go up the hill, maybe by Ridge. But this section is very different than the rest of the corridor, really, because it is a very commercial area. There's not, I guess there's a little residential on the corner because we have the new hotel or the apartments going in on the corner. Okay, so that's what they planned. If you guys want to revisit, we could in the future and talk about Sharrows. If you guys think that is not necessary, we'll just leave it as it is. But I just thought I'd bring up just because where it's located and the width of the lanes.
I think this is a good subject to revisit next time we discuss the bike and ped plan. Because a couple times a year or more, we make changes to the bike and ped plan. This is really something, next time we're adjusting the bike and ped plan to discuss.
And it's not like you have to reconstruct the street to do it. Let's say we said, okay, we would really like to see Sharrows here. It's just a matter of paint being put down. It wouldn't have to be reconstructed or anything different with it. So yeah, and I think the bike ped plan, almost have to update this year, next year.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and not to be argumentative, Tracy, but obviously paint is easy to apply, but then it takes some time to maintain that paint. So
absolutely it does.
Yeah, time and materials. And
absolutely.
It's not that we can't do it. It just, the more and more we add to it, the more and more challenging it will be for our public works crews to maintain.
Yep.
Okay, so I don't want to diminish that aspect of it. Element Way, the next item is the section of Element Way. Basically, it would be the east-west leg of Element Way is planned for reconstruction next year. This is tied to that site plan that we talked about, Element 4. As part of that overall project development, that section of roadway was planned to be reconstructed when that fourth building came into play. So again, that's in your packet. At this point, AIRS is doing design work on that. I do not have the typical section as of the date of this meeting. But by and large, it's relatively identified in the site plan that the element developers, Slendy Development, has presented to the village. So this particular road is narrower than a typical village street. It was done by design as part of this overall development plan. In addition to that, rather unique to this particular project is this section of roadway will also have angled on-street parking on the north side of the road. It is not specific parking for the element building, so this will be public parking. That will not be by permit or anything to that effect. So it'll be similar to maybe what you see on Brookwood for the Titletown development. This particular road is a 32-foot face-to-face road width. So typically, I think we have a 37-foot face-to-face road width. So this is narrower. Coincidentally, we are going through the process of amending our code of ordinances as we speak to restrict parking on a portion of this roadway. So essentially the south side of the road, I believe, correct, is planned for no parking. That's going through the cycle right now. I anticipate that going to village board this month. So there would be no parking on the south side of the road, specifically only for Packer game day, I believe.
Correct.
Okay, so you can park on the south side of the road absent of a Packer home game. Sidewalk will be extended on both sides of the street. Right now, the sidewalk terminates where the prior reconstruct was completed. So it'll be on both the south side and the north side. Tracy, I think when we talked, I thought it was just going to be on the north side, but it's on both sides. And then given the nature of the width of the road, there are no on-street full bike accommodations because it is only a 32-foot back face-to-face street. Any questions on that?
I just have one question. You know how they have back-in angle parking? What do you think of that? Or, I mean, I've heard it's safer. I mean, I don't know. And I've seen it places. Are you guys familiar with that at all? Kind of, it's like the angle parking now, you go in head first, so you're going that way, but they have parking where you actually pull in front of the parking and then you back into it. And they're saying, what I've heard is safer for pedestrians, because then you're getting out, you can see traffic better. When you're pulling back out, you can see better than when you're trying to back into the lane. And then like if you're emptying your trunk, you're right next to the sidewalk and you can take your stuff out. But it's kind of unique, and I've seen it some places, but I don't know if it was thought of or if it would be even considered, or what's your thoughts on it, Ryan?
It is safer. The challenging thing is generally motorists are not comfortable with it. So it's a lot easier to back out into an open road where you don't have two obstructions on both sides. Where backing in, granted, vehicles nowadays, they have a lot more sensors and backup cameras to assist with that. I guess when I was in school, which was before all that time when they had all these cameras and stuff. So maybe data would tell you different, that people are maybe more open to it. But I know the general motorist, their level of comfort backing is limited. So
I don't like that coming because you back in, there might be a pedestrian behind you, whereas you drive in, the pedestrian there, when you back out, it's going to be just cars in the street unless it's a big one. You're less likely to hit a pedestrian. That's why I put it back in. Because you don't know what little kid is going to run out and when you're backing in. Whereas if you drive in, you can see it and you back out, they are less likely to run into the street. That's just an opinion, but that's probably why a lot of people like it. Backings.
I've seen it places, but
Angle parking and then back in. First of all, if the angle is this way here and you're going this way here, you're gonna have to go into the other lane in order to back in.
oh, it gets turned. So it gets lined up with the, it wouldn't be facing
The angle will be the other way.
The angle goes the other way. So you kind of go past it and then you back right into it. So it's not like you get all convoluted. Yeah, it's just different.
It wasn't a conversation that we've had, but we can certainly entertain.
Just as long as I've seen it recently, and I was like, I have mixed feelings on it myself.
Yeah.
It's just a different
We're not used to it, so.
Exactly, that's the
Hard to
thing.
judge.
Just like roundabouts, when we first got, no one was used to them. They were these worst things in the world. But you get used to them. Now they're.
So again, this project will be done sometime this year in concert with the development that Helmet Building 4 is undertaking. They do anticipate to break ground soon on Building 4. We heard as early as later this month, early next month. Some hiccups on some easement issues on that property, so it could be delayed a little bit, but that's the plan. So this project would be completed in 2023.
Do they have an access point as well this from this new development out to Morris, or do they have to go out to Elmwood Way? It looked like there was not one, or is there one?
I don't think there is one.
There is not directly, so they have.
I was thinking, okay, that's a good thing. All right, any more questions on either of those two projects, just to update you guys, to kind of let you know bigger projects that are going on this year? Anything else to add, Joel, or Gordon? Then we'll go to department reports. Start with Parks and Recreation. Thanks.
A couple things. So, minor thing, a little bit more in depth, but the final pay request for the West Main Avenue Trail has been submitted. So that project is almost dead. That's between Sand Acres Drive and South Ridge Road on West Main. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to walk or bike that yet. Yes, no, anyone? Comments? Okay.
One question I have at Ridge Road, there's lights there, but there's no push button, there's no pedestrian. Ped heads, nothing there. So I don't know if it was just not part of the project or.
The discussion was that it put those in when we felt it was appropriate to go further to the east towards the roundabout.
So you're saying to cross
You cross
Ridge
Ridge.
east and west.
Yes, and there's no button, there's no ped head, there's nothing. So you get to that corner and it's like, oh, there's just no pedestrian, anything there.
Because the trail just kind of ends.
It does,
I
but
guess.
then you have your bikes and peds just ending there too.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I don't know.
It's
I was just surprised it wasn't there.
Cross there with a bike.
Yeah.
You can either sit there and wait forever or.
Yeah.
Do your couple minutes.
Yeah, and then
Make
go
sure you
because
don't
you
come
won't
flying
get,
over the hill.
yeah, because you won't get a
Yep.
access. You won't get a light at all.
Okay, good.
The bid specs are out. The Ashwaubenon River Trail Bridge and trail extension is active right now. Bids are due. What are they due? Bid opening will be on Thursday, December 1st for that. So we had a pre-construction meeting, pre-construction bid meeting early last week, and we probably had 15 or I'd say at least 15 people showing up for that, which represented at least 6 or 7 different companies that might be looking at bidding for that. Now, some of those 15 were subs, obviously, but I'm going to say there were at least 5 or 6 heavier hitters that actually would be putting the bridge in where they to bid on and get the low bid. So that's a good thing. That always doesn't equate to the bids that come in.
Yeah.
But it's a good sign they were there. So we've got that going on. So we're looking at having that approved then. We're not approved, but at least a recommendation to village board at their meeting on December 13th. And then just with the timing of everything, so they would need to get in the river. There's DNR regulations of when barges can be in the river and when construction can be done based on spawning season, so on and so forth. So we would probably literally award the bid. The bid would be awarded that night, and then paper signed either the 14th or 15th of December, so that they would have the holidays to get some of their ducks in order and hopefully start staging for the bridge construction in January.
Oh, nice.
So it'll be on the fast track once it's awarded.
Good news.
Yeah, that is good news.
It's good news that it's going through.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, village board approved it at our last meeting.
Brian, feel free to jump in on this one. Brian and I have met with some PW staff, Park and Rec staff, Lee, our operations superintendent, regarding plowing of some trail areas within the village. So as we talked about briefly before, with last month's minutes, we're going to be doing Sand Acres Drive from Grant Street northward to Main, and then plowing the new section of trail eastward to South Ridge Road. That's number one. Number two would be plowing Wabi. That would be plowed from Packerland to to Ridge. Packerland to Ridge.
Okay.
The sidewalk on the north side of the street's already plowed, so that would be the hook up there. That's pretty much a straight shot. And then they're going to be plowing the Ashwaubenon River Trail from the marina down to this year, Bay Harbor condominiums, and then up to Broadway. Part of that is already plowed, a small portion of it from Broadway down to the water pump station. That's already plowed. But that involved going out and getting more snow whips and putting snow whips in, because that's a fairly undulating, curvy-wurvy trail, which you would not be able to see without the whips being there. So those I believe those have been staked.
Yep, staked.
Those have been staked out. So we'll know what route to go there. I believe Brian's crews have taken the concrete grinder, and there's probably one or two spots on the marina pathway that settles, where the bricks meet the concrete. And so we try to grind those down a little bit, just so, the plow doesn't catch. We might, in all likelihood, need to, on that stretch, raise the plow.
In the brick sections.
Just a tad, because we're kind of worried about it. Once we hit Mansell Flats, it becomes an asphalt trail, and that's not going to be an issue. But the brick section is going to be a little work in progress. They might be walking on a slight snowpack, but still doable.
Yeah.
Still doable, especially for all the residents in Mansell that are walking and taking their dogs and whatever. Because for that building, there's really no pedestrian accommodations for them or streets to walk on. So this trail is very important to their exercise. We'll wait and see.
So how are you gonna clear them? Did you guys figure that out? Like what kind of vehicle, if you have to get anything or do anything different, or?
We're planning to use our existing fleet. Just depends on the trail sections. There's certain sections I know on Wabi that we will actually be able to do with a pickup truck. Everything by your main ad, we said we were going to do with the trackless.
We're going to try it with the trackless, which we have stored out at the sports complex for the sports complex / ice center clearing.
And then the river trail will also be a trackless, just because there's some hard 90-degree turns as you come around the buildings there that get my truck pretty easily.
That's good. And then we had talked about 72 hours after. That's when they're shooting for to get it done. So it would be not the very first thing, it'll be a little bit later. So we'll have to make sure to get that out so people understand that that's not going to be done. First in line, it'll be within 72 hours. They'll try to hit it.
It's really going to depend on the snow events. I mean, if we got 3 days of back-to-back snow, it'll be 72 hours after that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that's it, unless anyone has questions of anything else.
And maybe Brian could have fun in this next one, but I was talking about access points from Broadway to let people know, especially since the bridge was approved now, so people know when they're biking and walking on Broadway where they can access that trail. Because there are right now 3 access points. The marina, then there's one kind of by the WPS station, there's one just north of that. And then there eventually will be one on the Schneider site.
So
Schneider site.
in my vision, we're gonna have
Yes,
a trail map, in Ashwaubenon as part of the bridge project that shows the trail system right there.
Yep.
Where it goes, and similar to what we have in Sherwood Forest, we'll have Francine make that up, we'll laminate it over at Big Blue, and put a sun coating on it, so that people can see how much distance there is, where the access points are and loops. We may or may not want to do that. I don't think we need one on Broadway because there's really nowhere to park for people to park on Broadway. It's an egress point, but it's not like a trailhead per se.
Right, but a bicyclist, my thing is a bicyclist coming down the road
Would-
doesn't see where that trail accesses, especially that middle one, because the sign's back to have something showing right on Broadway, you know, Ashwaubenon River Trail this way or something, or even in the Marina side, Ashwaubenon River Trail this way. Not necessarily that there is parking there, but I think that just letting the bicyclists and pedestrians know how they can access that trail.
Yeah, it can be done. It certainly should be easy enough.
Just like a locator type sign, you know, like an informational blue and white or whatever, something basic.
And I think if you have a sign there that says bike path this way, that's kind of alert vehicle traffic too, that, well, there's a bike path there, there maybe is a bike.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Just for more awareness, just so people that are
Well,
new
there's a
to
bike
the
lane
area
on
don't know.
Broadway. There's a bike lane on Broadway too.
Yeah.
So.
Right, so, yeah,
So,
yeah.
People should know there's bikes there, but like I
You
said,
would think
it's
so.
not that big. You would think so.
It's just so people see it, because you, like I said, you bike it down that way, and if you don't know that access point's there, you're past it before you know.
So we can, at the very least, we can, I think it's appropriate for the north end and the south end, to do something like that. I'm assuming we can put something next to the current River Trail sign at the marina entryway. We'll see as we go along with it. But it has been discussed as part of the overall accommodation signage for the whole trail map.
All right, anything else, Rex?
I don't think so.
Okay, then, at 9B is Public Works, Brian.
You guys would like, I can work my way through each one of the items on the list here. If that's what's preferred. I'll do that. So Ashland Ave and Parkview signage, there was some concerns for those going westbound down Parkview. When you get to Ashland Ave, so State Highway 32, it's very abrupt. It says there's two signs that say do not enter. The DOT is going to be working to add accept bicycle signs to those two signs. They'll just be placards that will be placed below the do not enter signs to be installed by spring of 2023. Curb painting at the trail crossings within the industrial park that incorporates Contract Drive, Glory Road, Ashwaubenon Street, Parkview Road. That was completed this fall. Cormier mid-block crossing.
Can you go back to that? Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah.
The curb painting, was that because of our discussion with Mr. Ernst, or is that just something?
Curb cut, we,
Remember, he's worried about safety at those.
yeah, I think we had
intersections.
talked about it, I think, because people parking so close to the
Oh, to
trailhead,
the
where the
trailhead
crossing was,
itself.
so this will keep them back 20 meters. How big do you think it is?
They're, well, it all depends. Like some of them, there's driveways very near them, but they're supposed to be 15, but sometimes they're plus or minus based on whatever things may be nearby.
Yeah, so just to keep all those where the trail goes through the industrial park, so keep vehicles away from the
Wasn't he saying something about, we had small little stop signs for the bicyclists, but I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mark was saying, yeah,
I don't remember seeing any, or he said we should do that?
I think he must.
Because I don't see no little stop signs when I ride through. But the only thing I was thinking of is whoever did it, they did a nice job because all the poles are nice and yellow.
Yeah.
They're just painted.
Yeah.
If people complain to it, you couldn't put stop right on the pole.
What does that stop signs on the?
I don't remember seeing the little stop signs.
Packerland does, I don't know.
By
if they-
Glory, there
I
is.
think on,
I think some
In
of them
August
have
of
them.
2022, there was signs there.
Anybody that wouldn't stop at those, with the way it's wooded, it'd be
Yeah.
pretty dangerous,
Yeah.
but.
Well, and that's when you have a car parked right up to it too.
Yep.
And that limits the sight
Sometimes
lines
there's
as
even
well.
semis there.
Yeah, so to keep the cars back further as safety issues. for
Okay,
them.
go ahead, sorry to.
No, you're all right. So Cormier Mid-Block Crossing at Oneida and San Luis, we removed that this fall. For the untrained eye, when you go through there, it may look like it's not removed and it's actually more prominent than it was before. That's because when you scarify the top of concrete, it becomes white again, like when it's new. So with some aging in time, it will turn back to more that dullish gray tan that concrete normally is. Broadway and pedestrian ramp, this is very new, very near the Ashwaubenon trail that we were just talking about. We did look into reviewing that intersection. It was determined that it would be best to install a ramp coming from the new trail out into Broadway. At that point in time, you could remove the existing ramp that's there. That's kind of right in the middle of that intersection. Essentially, it just dumps you right out into the intersection of Hanson and Broadway.
Do you guys know what he's talking about? Sure that. Oh. I'm like, oh, it's up. So it's part of the Ashwaubenon River Trail. Either you could go back out to Broadway. Yeah.
Trail comes here. Here's the sidewalk on Broadway, and a ramp is installed in the middle of the intersection.
So Brian, then the new ped ramp would be further to the south. Is that correct?
Yeah, we talked, I remember seeing this before.
And it would not have the
Truncated domes.
And why is that? Does that not have to be there? I know you talked
Correct.
about
Yeah.
that.
So anytime you have a truncated dome, essentially it's for those that are visually impaired. So if you are sending someone out into an intersection like this, you have to give them a safe location to get to, a refuge area. So essentially what you're doing here is you take a person that is blind or visually impaired and you're dumping them into the middle of an intersection with nowhere to go but to play Frogger with.
Yeah.
Limited eyesight. So you'll see a lot of areas the DOT will do this. They'll put in on the other side. They'll just put a ramp that literally goes nowhere. But essentially it gives that person that's visually impaired a spot to go, and then they'll quickly notice with their walking stick that they have grass on all sides of them. They got to turn around and go back. So. Bike stencils on Cormier. Staff plans to review the condition after this winter, and then see, getting it added to our list when we're out painting. Pedestrian signage on Holmgren here from Morris Lombardi. Those signs are placed on order. This is a little bit outdated. They got placed on order actually today, not on the 10th. Along with the skewed railroad crossing signs at Parkview and Holmgren. Then an update on County Highway EE, which is also Grand Street. Joel and I, we did meet with Paul Fontecchio, the highway commissioner. There is no future maintenance within their 6-year CIP to do any work out there on Grand Street. The county is open to the village doing whatever we would like in the right of way, of course at our expense. Yeah. So, if we want to put in a bike path or anything like that, they said have at it, but be ready to pay for all of it. So. The updates that we do have: roundabout construction at Mid Valley. So that's essentially could be referred to as a frontage road on 2025. That's kind of a messy intersection if you ever came through there through rush hour. Backs up and ends up usually resulting in accidents because people are bypassing vehicles and just not doing correct motorist travel actions or whatever you want to call it. And then a roundabout at Packerland in 2026, so the year following. Both of those roundabouts will have pedestrian accommodations on the outer edges, but essentially they won't really connect to anything at this point in time. So.
And the reason Grant Street came up is there was a proposal to the village just to the east of Sand Acres where it hits Grant. And there was some like 10 lots, and they were going to back up onto Grant Street, and then they would have 2 other access points. And then the village board was like, we need to look at that further because people, if you've been on Grant, it's a narrow road, is busy and trying to get out there. So the county board supervisor had reached out to me to talk about it further because he lives on the south side of Grant Street, and Brian also lives on the south side of Grant Street in that subdivision over there. And Grant is just getting busier and busier. It's very narrow. And
So you're talking the opposite side of where Quick Trip is, where they put the roundabout, the new Quick Trip. There's a Quick Trip.
I think where the new Quick Trip is. Is it in De Pere?
Yeah,
so it's on
right
the
across
side of
from right across from the co-op.
The co-op.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Senate.
I was saying.
Yeah, from, oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's Senex now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the club's there, and then across the way, it's not a Senex,
It's a Chris.
Chris. There we go.
I'm
Chris
sorry, you're right. I
Yes.
wonder I confused you. I apologize, you're right. It's a
Chris, yes.
So yeah, this is for the west end, so on the west side.
Yeah,
of
because that's
41.
horrible to try and vote. I'm amazed they didn't make it a roundabout when they made the roundabout on the east side.
Yeah.
But
So yeah, so that's why we were involved with Grant Street, just because that new development was looked at there, and then we were talking about bike and ped accommodations along that corridor, and it's a fast road, and there's not any accommodations for anybody, and there's more and more houses going out there, more pedestrians and stuff, so that's why we then met with the county. See where it was at. Anything else, Brian, or anybody have any questions for Brian? He's fairly new. What have you been here? A couple of months, is it?
No, so I have been here this week number 7.
Okay.
Previous to this, I was director of public works in the village of Greenville, so.
Oh. Yeah, so he's new. We can kind of stump him for a while.
And he's well versed on DOT.
Yeah, because he worked for DOT.
Yeah, so previous to me working for the village of Greenville for approximately 5 years, I worked for the DOT, so.
Designed the 41 corridor.
Some stuff on 41, yes.
so were you living in Grant when you worked at Greenville?
Yes.
Did you, I was wondering if you moved.
Yep, I was commuting.
Hmm.
Less than ideal.
I had a shorter commute.
It's all right. Welcome aboard.
Yep, thank you.
All right. State DOT, no rep from the state. Public safety, go ahead.
Okay. Excuse me. It's so funny because I still get, I'm still communicating with Derek.
Oh, are you really?
Sure, I still communicate with Derek. We communicate back and forth. And really, we haven't had nobody since Derek left.
Yeah, I think DOT has stopped doing that and having people
So
represent.
it's the same thing with the school. So
Yeah.
talking with Dirk, Dirk's not going to be here unless there's something that he needs to talk about.
Right.
And it's the same thing with the DOT. The majority of our meetings don't have a DOT aspect to them. But if we ask someone from the DOT to come here because we've got an issue or an agenda item that needs to be talked about, they said they would send somebody. Or we can ask Brian.
I do not represent the DOT.
All right, we have public safety is next, and Kyle had sent an email. Hopefully everybody got the email that Kyle had sent in regard to, and Kyle, I don't know if you want to touch on that a little bit before, but Brian had put together some information on traffic in the area.
Well, just real briefly, I was watching the news, and unfortunately, there's been a lot of pedestrian accidents, but vehicle pedestrian accidents. It seemed like there's a spate of them the last few weeks, and it got me thinking. And I live on Cornbury Road, and the cars sometimes don't follow the speed limit on Cornbury Road. And I guess it was just my question is Cornbury Road skewing my opinion of vehicle traffic? And I thought we would ask public safety, is speeding a problem in the village? And apparently it is, because it's been previously addressed. So I guess my thoughts are we need to try to figure out what can we do to make it safer to walk in the village? And enforcement, of course, is one of them, but police officers can't be there all the time. And enforcement, I think, works only for a short period of time. So, but maybe there are things that we can do on the road that will slow traffic down, whether it's speed limits or whether it's road design. And I'm thinking, long term, so what should we be looking at doing to try to slow traffic down and make it safer to walk in the village?
Yeah, I think, certainly hearing their report, they'll address it, but as Kyle, you had mentioned, the village has taken this into consideration as it plans its strategic efforts, right? So there's 2 or 3 solid strategic action items in our 5-year strategic plan that works towards those issues. A couple of them are directly tied to enforcement and more programming and end of things. Some of them are on education because we're talking about bike rodeos and bicycle and pedestrian training in schools. Other components take into account our bike and ped plan, our comprehensive plan, and what projects come up to take advice and to utilize those planning efforts from that design. So it's definitely on the radar, I think, for the village.
So I was really happy to see that.
Right. I would argue that if you go to any community and say, what's your number one problem? They're going to say speeding.
Yeah.
Speeding is your number one problem. As you had mentioned, you can't be in all places at all times. Anecdotally, in my experience working with public safety and doing ride-alongs, these guys are out running patrol, running radar, and might sit on Packerland, for example, in the middle of the afternoon, because that's when you got the complaints. And you see 3 cars in the course of an hour.
Yeah.
Is that a productive use of staff time to sit there for those 2 hours or 1 hour to see 3 cars? So it's kind of a hit or miss type situation. They're going to address kind of their data and the information that they've been gathering over time. But one of the components as it relates to the enforcement and the things that you'll see as part of the budget presentation for tomorrow night is that we're looking to add 3 additional public safety officers to the department. As part of that conversation, one of the emphasis that we had administratively that I think the department will present is dedicating more directed enforcement to traffic and speed enforcement. So that's one of the emphasis that's going forward with these 3 officers too, is that we add more traffic patrols that we've kind of since gotten away from. So definitely a goal from that standpoint. But then it just takes time to eventually make those engineered changes in those infrastructure.
Well, absolutely, I realize that, but it's the, you have to start sometime.
Yeah.
So I was really pleased when I brought it up and get good.
Right. Could you always do more? We could add an officer at every intersection and start busting people.
Even with all that, it's still people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have so many people drive through the stop signs over there by me. I will not walk across an intersection or run across an intersection. I let them go.
I think one of the key things for this committee and then for us as a staff team is just being updated regularly on these issues, because if we start to focus it more on the data and the analytics, we can start targeting areas and then build successes off of small things versus wholesale changes.
Yeah.
So maybe we've identified an intersection as being very problematic. A lot of near crashes, near misses, things of that nature. And can we just target that intersection and make some improvements, both from an enforcement standpoint, but an engineering standpoint as well? Maybe we can tackle education. Having Dirk involved in the committee and our SROs are awesome too in working with the schools and identifying challenges that they have before and after school. And if that information can be relayed to other staff, so public safety relays that to engineering and public works, and it comes to committee, and we can start tackling these issues a little bit more proactively versus reactively.
Okay, talking about Cormier, I mean, I know where Kyle lives. I've been a member of this committee for I don't know how many years, must be 15 years, I don't know, it's been a long time. And I have complained too, starting with Tommy, when Tom was here, if you remember Tom, and then whoever came after, about my street of Ponderosa. I live on Ponderosa, 4 houses up from the corner of Pioneer. And the school is on the corner. And probably, I had 4 kids. My 4 kids were probably just as much at fault of going up and down Ponderosa as anybody else. Mm-hmm. But I tell you what, that's a bad street. That's a school street. And I've complained about that to the officers many times about the traffic on Ponderosa. And in the summertime, when you think it would be less, it's more because you got the park. When softball season is there, it's terrible. I mean, it's just, Dale, you probably notice that when you're walking.
Well, that's what stop signs are. I mean, but when I run and walk, I'm fortunate because there happens to seem to be police officers that are watching. So, but I've more than once.
I mean, on the stop signs too. I just about got hit the other couple weeks ago in the corner of Carroll Lane. Carroll and Pioneer. I mean that car was right. I mean, it was like we're right here. So I mean, but the traffic on Ponderosa is really by the time they get to my house, if they turn off of Pioneer, and by the time they get to my house, I'm the fourth house, they're going 35, 40
We
miles
don't
an
have
hour.
any stop signs in between.
None.
Yeah.
None
The other
between,
roads too.
and we tried to get a stop sign at Brookdale, but, that didn't help, because, that's a quarter of a mile from my house all the way up to Babcock. I hate to bring that up all the time, but
Speed signs that tell people how fast they're going, how they set those up in certain areas.
we had that too at one time.
You didn't? I mean, is it just a temporary fix, basically? Reminds people what the speed limit is, but then
Yeah.
how fast
human
they're going,
beings.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we only have one, so it's.
Oh, you only have one.
Yeah, road
Oh,
bases,
okay.
really, so get it out there.
Those are one of those things, those are elements, and Brian and I kind of experimented with that in Greenville when we were there to see
Dynamic driving.
dynamic messaging signs, basically, instead of being trailer, it's somewhat portable, it's solar powered. You can set it up in the neighborhoods, you can move it, you can do all sorts of things, and it's a little bit more semi-permanent to target certain areas. We had a situation on one of our local roads there where we bought one of the dynamic readers, put it up, it sat blank for basically 2 weeks, I think about a week to 2 weeks,
2 weeks.
to collect data, so it's actually collecting the data. People think that it's not working. They complained online, the village screwed up again because they put up the sign and it doesn't work. Shame on them. Flip the switch, it turns it on. We run it for 2 weeks with it on to see what kind of results we get. After 2 weeks, we turn it off again. And here we get complaints again. Oh, the village fixed it for 2 weeks and it was broken. But we were monitoring, it was collecting data that entire time. And I think we ended up seeing a reduction in overall average, our 85 percentile by about maybe 2 miles an hour.
2 to 3. Yeah.
So it's pretty effective.
that makes sense because I think they have them in Manitowoc on Waldo Boulevard. And it caught me and it said, oops, got you or something. And then I was like, oh my gosh, do they have a camera in there? I'm going to get a fine. Well, now I never speed on that road because of that.
You gotta go to Illinois for that.
I mean, it's not only just Ponderosa or Pioneer or Timber, or any one of the streets around the school. I mean, it's
Right.
it's all over.
I will say around.
And it's hard. I feel sorry for the.
I think Brian and Ben can kind of talk on what you guys have done over the last 12 months, I think, now, for school.
Yeah, everybody should have
And
this
you have the
report too.
report.
Yep, so to address a couple things as far as, speed, pedestrians, and talking about, school enforcement, and also our, alignment with the village's strategic plan. Starting off with, so far this year to date, we've had 2 bike vehicle collisions and 1 pedestrian vehicle collision. The pedestrian was actually, a pedestrian that was not following the crosswalk lights, and was tapped by a vehicle. The bike ones were the fault of the motor vehicle driver. One was at Babcock and Ponderosa. Vehicle pulling away from a stop sign on Ponderosa at Babcock, didn't see the bike and struck the bike at slow speed. The other one was right turn from from Pilgrim to northbound Holmgren. That was one where the vehicle making the right turn did not properly yield to a bike that was in a crosswalk. If we want to talk about a success that we've had over the past few years, we had a significant reduction in pedestrian vehicle collisions. We did have a cluster of them that were in the stadium district from even pre-COVID to 2021. I know that my predecessor on this committee, Lieutenant Panzier, worked with you guys and also worked with Public Works to get improved lighting in that block. We have not had any vehicle pedestrian collisions in that block since. So I think that was a pretty good example of engineering assisting us in that regard. We look at the strategic goals. The village has put out a 5-year strategic plan. They've got several smart action items within that plan. I'll touch on 2 of them here that kind of relate best to the public safety side of traffic safety. One is to increase directed enforcement for speed and traffic enforcement. There's several ways that we do this. First off, every frontline patrol car has a moving radar unit installed within that vehicle, pretty well permanently mounted within that vehicle. Those radar units are capable of a stationary mode, so if they park at the side of the road, they can monitor traffic with that. They're also capable of moving mode, so as they're, say, driving down Cormier and they catch a vehicle going the opposite direction, they can get a speed on that vehicle and take enforcement action based off of that. We also have laser units that are available to our officers as well. We have stressed with our officers the need for greater attention to traffic enforcement, because that is certainly a community concern, and that's also a community risk concern as well. And I'm happy to say that our officers have responded to that. If we look a little bit further in this packet to page 6, traffic trends are overall have been down compared to, say, 2017, 2018. 2019, they trended down. 2020, of course, being COVID year, kind of pulled the bottom off from other things. But they have been trending back up. Crashes still have not returned to pre-COVID levels, which is a good thing. But speed enforcement, citations, and speed warnings have been up through the first 3 quarters of 2022 relative to 2021 and 2019. Citations are up compared to 2021 and 2020. Warnings are on track to be up compared to 21. We'll see compared to 2020, but already above 2019, which is pre-COVID. So officers have been responding. This is also while our patrol time has been down. We did put some systems in place with the county's community or communication center to be able to track how much time our officers are actually on patrol and get an aggregate number for that. Unfortunately, due to staffing levels we've had this year, our overall patrol time has been down compared to 2021, but enforcement activity has been up. So our officers have been responding well to our request for greater attention paid to traffic enforcement. We look at the other strategic goal that I'm going to discuss today. Develop and implement a plan to improve traffic safety during school start and release times. We started heavily stressing that as far as directed patrol at the beginning of 2022. The way we went about addressing that concern is to have our day shift patrol officers begin their shifts out on the road versus what we had traditionally done, which was starting roll call at 7 o'clock. And then usually after roll call, they weren't hitting the road until about 7:15 to 7:30. Well, unfortunately, that's the beginning time of school, especially with regards to the high school. So we've really been stressing to have marked patrols out there. Both of our SROs are out there in marked squad cars, and then our daytime patrol officers are out there in squad cars, marked squad cars as well. So if we look at page 3 down at the bottom, we've been stressing that. We've also been keeping better tabs on that. So that's a directed patrol that generates a CAD call number each time they do a directed patrol. It's predominantly school, but also neighborhood complaints as well. So those speeding complaints, we've had a good increase starting this year. You'll see a downtick, and that kind of mirrors what our patrol time trends have been. Reduces in the summertime, call volume is up. Also, we are not having those directed patrols around the schools in the summertime that we do during the school year. But ticks right back up in August and then spiked back up significantly in September with school back in session. As far as enforcement activity in the school zones, if we look at page 5, with our traffic citations, and part of this was most likely also a record keeping issue as well. There's a checkbox on our traffic citations where you can check the zone that it occurred in. So for example, on a traffic warning that's issued or a traffic citation that's issued, we can check various zones such as construction zone, school zone. So we have stressed that, and also with our increased patrols, you can see that school zone violations, so in other words, school zone enforcement activity has gone up significantly in 2022 with citations issued, and has increased noticeably with warnings issued within school zones. As far as 2020, obviously COVID year, 2021, that's not to say that there wasn't any, but I think we also had a record keeping issue there as far as stressing, hey, make sure you're checking the box when you're doing these directed patrols in the school zones. So not to say it wasn't happening, it just wasn't accounted for appropriately. So going forward, we are hoping, as Joel mentioned, to be able to add some additional bodies that we can then utilize to help accomplish these goals and help make our accomplishing these goals sustainable into the future. Our department had historically had a dedicated traffic patrol officer or directed patrol officer for several years, up until I believe it was late 2018, 2019 thereabouts. When due to staffing, we had to pull that officer away from that assignment and put him back on a regular 24-hour line shift. We are hopeful that if things work out as requested through the budget process, that we're able to reinstitute a dedicated traffic patrol car, and that we're also able to utilize additional bodies once they have trained up to help bolster our patrol staffing during the day and get those patrol hours back up to a level where it can be a little bit more responsive to the community's desires and needs.
If you don't mind me asking, at what speed would you stop the car? 25 mile speed limit.
Asking for a friend.
You don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but I mean,
No, I'm more happy.
what do you allow? What do you allow?
Well, we have to have stops that are legally defensible. So a couple ways we can make a stop based on speed is either officer's observation and then estimating the speed based on their experience, or estimating the speed based on experience and then confirming with radar. So essentially a radar or a LiDAR stop. As far as enforcement priorities, we don't stop for 1 or 2 over. It also varies on the speed of the street. We don't have a hard and fast number. We don't have a permissible speed per se, and officially any speed is illegal speed. But for practical purposes, usually once you start getting up around the +10 range, there's really not much argument that a person can have, certainly on a residential street, with enforcement at a +10 level. And that's really outside the range of any margin of error for a radar unit, which you have to factor in. ±3 is generally the margin of error for a radar unit. When you get to that point, there's not a lot of leeway on that one. We can't mandate certain, we can't put in citation quotas or anything like that. We can push for enforcement activity, enforcement contacts, but our officers do still have that discretion based upon what are they confronted with at that stop, as far as what action they want to take.
Just don't do that in Rosendale.
Well, I don't want to name any particular community, but you've got different community philosophies, and I think we're very fortunate here in Ashwaubenon that the community's philosophy is not to really run a street tax. We're not out there to raise money. We're out there for community safety. So I think our enforcement philosophy is reasonable, of just being able to have the availability to focus the effort on that we would like to.
I've been seeing more in the last few weeks, more stops in my block than there was for a while.
Yep, and we've got a new officer that was just off of FTO. We've got some people that came back from some leave. So yeah, we've had a little bit of an uptick in some of our available staff.
Yeah, there's no question the presence has increased at the schools. I see it every morning when I run through that area by Pioneer and Elementary.
Thanks for the feedback too. It's good to know that it's being noticed, and we've got some feedback from parents as well, and that's the hope. But right there, that's one of those issues where are we looking at the right inputs and outputs? Because if we look at it from proactive patrol, and again, being that we're fortunate in a community that prioritizes community safety versus raising funds off the back of motorists, preventive patrol is exactly that. High visibility, and it prevents, say, crashes, certainly, hopefully, but it also prevents violations. So you're not seeing the output of maybe the traffic citation, the traffic warning, or the traffic stop. So from the data collection end of it, that's why we started recording these as direct patrol, so we can only show what it is we're doing on the input side, even if on the output side, we're getting a positive result of crashes, and not necessarily violations.
It is amazing how many people actually take their children to the school and pick them up versus being on the bus. It surprises me, but
Yeah.
anyways, there's a lot of traffic there, so the presence is, I'm sure, well,
I appreciate
yeah.
it. I drop off at
We've
two
had-
schools every morning. I appreciate it.
And part of what the school safety plan as well is we've gotten some feedback from our officers out there working, being visible and watching that flow of traffic of suggested improvements. For example, one of them was on San Luis, reworking the signage there to avoid vehicles stopping and standing. They can park there, but the way it was worded, they could still stop and stand there. So we cleaned that language up so it was at least more enforceable. And so we're on better ground. We gotta get people out of there. So things like that have been very effective as well.
I think from a community standpoint too, it's just nice having that presence. I think even for all the kids to be seeing it and to have that, again, just I think that's that unique thing for Ashwaubenon being a smaller community. Just for even our kids to have like the police officers around, not just for the traffic part of it, but just even for the general day and age we're in with kids in schools and feeling safe and going. As a parent, I also appreciate it from that standpoint when you see, I mean, Valley View there's a lot of kids that are going up to that school every day, and you're watching them all come up from the back. And I'm not gonna lie, there've been many times I've looked and just been like, yeah, that actually does not feel very good in my stomach when I think of all the things that could go wrong. So seeing like the high police presence around that time too, I think as a parent gives a really good peace of mind for that standpoint too, and for the kids to have that peace of mind.
There is a double benefit to it,
There
absolutely.
definitely is.
Just getting out of my driveway to come to this meeting is hard. It really is.
Yeah.
I was down that April rain, because all these apartments, new apartments, the traffic has just increased tremendously. I disagree. I don't think it's any different than it was 10 years ago. Has it gotten a little bit more traffic on Marley and those things in the Titletown area or not? I didn't think so.
I don't see it.
I didn't see it either, but all the neighbors are all upset. Oh, the traffic's increased and all this and then now they're building more apartments and oh my.
I haven't seen an increase. I
I
mean,
haven't either.
there could be an increase because just in general, you see an increase in
Well,
traffic.
Ridge Road, she said, has increased, and that is true that Ridge Road is increased with traffic, but I don't even see that.
Looks the same to me. So
We used to live on Farley, Marvell, and I think the traffic's the same, but some people think that area is very congested or getting congested now. I don't see it. That's good to know.
Anything else, gentlemen, over there? Anything?
no, I mean, we just have been having issues with staffing, so we're getting people back from multiple other things, and we have 2 guys that are starting FTO now, so hopefully we'll get them up to speed really shortly, and then hopefully we can have the addition of the other ones. And
If the department was down 5 officers just from retirements and voluntary kind of terminations, if you will, not to mention a couple people that were out on whether it be family medical leave or whether it's not take blood duty issues. So
we've dealt with a lot, so we're hopefully getting back to where we need to be, and just understanding how we operate when even like an ambulance call goes out, we first respond to all of them. So you're taking an officer from patrol, having them first respond so we can work things efficiently and give the community the best service medically as possible, right? So for half hour, 45 minutes, that officer isn't running traffic. So that's another reason. Plus our medical calls are up substantially from years prior. So that's just not making excuses for us, but we're doing everything we possibly can traffic wise. So if you guys have any complaints, let us know. We'd be more than happy to set an area. And we have talked with our officers to kind of lower their standards for speed in residential areas. So hopefully we see an increase in those stops and enforcement actions.
Are the potential add to staffs, are they all 3 as well? Like they're keeping with that trend and everything?
I'll be public safety.
I forget that because actually I just came up ironically in a bike accident when we were just in Florida. A woman crashed her bike really bad and the police officer got there right after I saw it. And I forget that like not everyone does do that. So right away I'm like, what? Holding her else. I looked and I'm like, all right, are you good to? Oh no. He was just like, he's like, yeah, I'm too good with blood. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh yeah. Like you're just okay.
Yeah,
He's like, we have to wait for the EMTs to get here. And I was like, oh yeah, no, not everyone does. Like,
very
And then honestly, the amount of time it took, I was like, yeah, we are very, very fortunate that you guys have all three, because that makes a big difference in situations like that.
Yeah.
Crashed her e-bike.
So
So she's going like 30, cut her toe off.
Oh,
Yeah, there was a lot of blood. She was like 65, so it took, so it took, a little bit for them to get there. So I was like, I'm glad we have, ours are all three.
One other thing I just want to mention really quick that maybe this committee does not know, the Public Safety Department and the Engineering Department have an internal traffic committee, I guess is what it's called. And they look at these types of things, like let's say, Ben would say, hey, this intersection, we're having problems, we're having a lot of crashes, that may come to that committee. They look at it from an engineering and an enforcement aspect, and then maybe come up with some solutions. I just did a ride along with two of the lieutenants, and one of the intersections they were concerned about was Hanson and Oneida Street. And evidently they had discussed that at that traffic committee and trying to come up with some ways, because it's one of the highest crash intersections in the community. So they are doing that type of thing, looking at engineering and looking at enforcement. And I would encourage you guys to really keep doing that, because we all know we can't have an officer in every corner. It's never gonna happen. I mean, law enforcement costs a lot for the village anyway, and then they can't do it all themselves. And engineering has to be involved, education has to be involved for it to actually be effective and efficient, because they can't do it all on their own. But that committee, I think, really has some good things that they do, and really looks at things. And if we have people call in or ask about something like a new stop sign somewhere or something, that committee would look at it and discuss it and decide where to go. So just so you know, that's kind of going on.
We've had a couple things that we looked at and discussed. One was traffic light timing.
Yes.
We did examine that, and we found that Brian Krickner had detail of missing it, but that our traffic light timing is within acceptable standards.
Right.
So we explored that as a possible engineering alternative. Also, even one that we were talking about today with Element Way, that was a discussion we talked about as far as no parking and helping traffic flow there, especially special events. And then we also discussed a proposed traffic stop sign deletion. So things of that nature, we can get a little bit technical and kind of into the minutia. That's kind of a helpful venue for us to talk to the staff.
Yeah, so it's a nice committee that they have to look at some of those nitty gritty things, and have some professionals looking at it and putting their heads together and coming up with a good solution. So if we have anything, or if you guys have anything, it's always an option to go to that committee as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Let's see, last school district, like Rex had mentioned, Dirk reached out to me, and his responsibilities at school and stuff, he just can't be here every time, but he likes the committee, he likes to be involved in it, he's a vice president walker himself, but he just can't get here. So when we have things like Rex said, we'll reach out to him, and then he can come or do some research for us and give us some information if we have anything with the schools that we want to look at. Natalie from Wello did send an update. The Yield to Your Neighbor continues with some really great results. Thank you to the Ashwaubenon for our participation in it. They're developing a full summary of results, and we'll share it with the Bike Ped Committee at our next meeting. Winter Mission, we've all talked about Winter Mission, basically encouraging people to get out and walk and move in the community during the winter. They're going to be doing a soft launch of this initiative in December. She'd included a one-page description of the project, which I'm sorry I don't have. I'll get that to you. We're hoping to work with Ashwaubenon to set up an event or a press conference to highlight the clearing of the trails, to bring positive press to the village and amplify the connection on how these practices improve well-being in the winter. So I believe that Natalie has maybe reached out to, I don't know if she's reached out to the village president to talk about maybe doing something like that to kind of publicize that we're clearing trails, what trails, how they'll be cleared and all of that. Get some more press out for that, and also, get involved with the Winter Mission.
I just took those signs down today. I think you need to have them sitting up there in the winter,
Yeah.
blowing around.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, just hang on to it if you want, and then put it out in the spring again,
I do have
if
them.
you want. All right, any other public comments on bicycling in the community or walking in the community? Anybody else have anything else? So our next Bike Ped Committee is scheduled for Monday, December 12th. And with that, I would welcome a motion to adjourn.
I only have a question.
Okay.
For like Brian and them, is is it valuable for them to have to sit in our entire meeting, or could they be earlier rather than sitting through our discussions? Because they're valuable.
Right.
But their time here listening to us is not valuable in my mind. Or anybody else,
Right.
as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Could we move those people up earlier and then have our discussions after? Because when we have our next meeting, if something comes up, we can get back to them. But for them to sit here for
2 hours,
yeah,
Yeah, I
so
mean, I
wait
have
to
no,
give us a
I have no problem with that. I mean, I think it's always just been set up this way. I mean, it's something, and if there's something on the agenda that we have that we
yeah.
really
I mean,
need
if
some
you
input
see something
from,
you think you should be involved in,
Yeah.
absolutely come in early.
Yeah.
But I mean, not come in early.
Great,
They can,
just, yes,
Why
for
don't
that.
we just have it, start out the
Okay.
agenda, public safety report, rather, and then they can decide whether they want to stay or go.
Yeah.
now you
We
can't
started
do that.
Brian,
What do
probably
you mean?
has-
I don't know, they said Brian, that's me.
This
So-
Brian,
Oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
that Brian, yeah,
Almost catch me off guard today, and I had to remember that you were here.
Yep.
And then Brian did
If
that.
we move this up, just after action, on minutes, just have our staff reports, and then
Yeah.
after that, comments from the public. I guess I would welcome the idea of putting public comments on bicycling and walking in the community, and just kind of limiting that, or just, because you have comments from the public.
Right.
It's kind of the
Why we have
same
a
thing,
choice.
so it's
Yeah.
redundant.
Yeah, so take 10 out and not have that, because it's at the beginning anyway.
The department reports, the site plan review could be really part of a department report that, since I come to most meetings, I can address that, and it can just really just be questions and updates on what's going on in the site plan. So really, when you get to specific action items from the committee, that would be the last thing to tackle for the agenda.
So maybe move department reports then up after like comments from the public. We probably should have that up early, have it right after that, and then our action items and everything will
So we
come
could leave
behind
it.
that.
Yep.
That's a good idea, because to have, them sit the whole time when there's nothing prevalent or that they haven't put on, and if they want to stay, they can, or if there's something that they want to chime in on, they can. Good call. Okay, so we'll move that up at the next, from the agendas from now, and we'll take the public comments off number 10, because we have that up front with public comments early on, so we don't need to do it again.
Are you moving all reports, department reports up?
Yeah, move department reports up. We'll put it right under comments from the public, so it'll be like number 7. And then all the action items will go beyond that, and then site plan review, we won't list that anymore, and that'll just come as a report then, Joel, you want it that way? Okay, so we'll just have site plan review will be part of the report, department reports. And then
Well,
Kyle
is-
and Joel can hit it then.
Yeah, I guess that'll work.
Yeah.
Because that won't be Joel giving it, it'll typically be Kyle.
Kyle, yeah.
So we could just put reports and updates on the agenda versus department reports, because well, it's not technically a department either, so.
That's true.
Updates.
And one last thing.
Yes.
Can we at least take a piece of our spreadsheet? Let's take an area, south of 172 east side, and go through them each time, because there may be things that are done there that you're aware of and I'm not aware of. Probably should be, but not. And we can close them out.
Yeah, coming up after the holidays too, everything that we've covered, we're gonna be adding in.
Adding into
Correct.
it, that's
So
true too.
We're gonna do that once a year type, that's what we had talked about.
Okay.
So that's.
Okay,
coming up. We'll be
okay,
doing
that's
that.
fair.
We'll
After the first
probably-
year.
Yeah, we'll be updating it then.
Okay.
Okay.
Then
So that like
that's
our
the plan.
January or February meeting, somewhere around there. Okay,
Sounds good.
sounds good. All right, anything else, anybody? Otherwise, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, on the second, anybody?
Oh, okay.
First, Dale made motion, Jessica second.
Great.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.